Now, oddly, before we get to Thor, there's actually another story that crosses right through these events, and that would be Adam Warlock's lore entry, Golden Sail. In his entry, it says, "In the beginning, there was darkness. The universe was no more than an endless void, a vast expanse of silent nothingness, until celestial forces shaped the stars and nurtured life into being. Just as the universe began in darkness, so did I, created within a protective cocoon, from which I burst forth, fully formed. A golden guardian designed to bring peace to the galaxy with my vast cosmic might. But there is a cycle to life, and just as I was born from this cocoon, now I've returned to it, much sooner than I could have anticipated. My cosmic awareness sensed that something was amiss, a great disturbance in the fabric of time and space itself. As multiple realities and timelines became entangled, I reflexively shielded myself within this protective shell. If I truly hoped to fulfill my ultimate purpose, then I would have to bide my time and build my strength for the trials ahead. But what would they be? Even with my deep connection to the primal forces of the universe, I was both literally and figuratively in the dark once more. As I slumbered within my restorative sheath, it became a wayward vessel floating through the cosmos. I was no longer in control of my own destiny, merely a passenger, adrift on the currents of fate. The silence out amongst the stars brought a sense of tranquility I had not experienced since before my birth. However, this serenity would not last long. "Adam!" A voice called my name, echoing not in my ears, but inside of my mind. Whoever was calling me was reaching out across the void with a psyche even more powerfully attuned than my own. "We are not so different, you and I," the voice continued. "We both slumber while the multiverse burns around us. Some gods we are." As the powerful words pulsed within my brain, an image began to form in my mind's eye. A man confined to a sacred chamber, not quite a cocoon like my own. His was nearly as old as time itself, yet similar in many ways. The bearded man within was frail and weak, devoid of power. But he was not always so, as my mind was flooded with brief glimpses of his storied past. It became clear that he was once a mighty king that ruled a glorious realm for centuries on end. "Time is something that I have never feared, not until now. Time and space are twisting around us, and I am trapped here within the Odin sleep, unable to do a damn thing about it." The Odin sleep. Of course. I knew the voice was familiar, even if the man himself no longer was. It belonged to the Allfather of Asgard, mighty Odin. Had he fallen to the same forces that had caused me to reflexively retreat into my cocoon? "Nay," Odin replied, reading my own thoughts. "I was brought low by the machinations of my own son, the trickster known as Loki. The foul child has usurped the throne of Yggsgard and is set to destroy our proud legacy for his own selfish ends yet again." Did he say Yggsgard? But the proper name of his realm was the least of my concerns. While the rage that the Allfather felt about his son's actions was palpable, there was something more beneath it. A deep concern that spanned far beyond the realm he once ruled. "You too are preparing for a battle when you awaken, Golden One. And while my son may indeed test your mettle, he's naught but a distraction from your true enemy. There is darkness in the cosmos, Adam. One far deeper than that of our slumbers. I have felt it trying to creep its way into my realm, even into my own dreams. Should it be let loose, I fear that it shall corrupt all it touches, snuffing out even the stars itself until nothing remains." What could he be speaking of? I called out to Odin for an answer, but his voice had muted to nothing more than a distant echo. As my cocoon drifted far past the embattled realm of Yggsgard, I left a small fraction of my soul's energy behind with the sleeping Odin, a hint of light to keep the darkness he spoke of at bay. I prayed it would be enough. In the darkness of the cosmos, while Adam Warlock floats away to his next location, let's give him some time to get there and finally discuss everyone's favorite son of Odin, Thor. In Thor's lore entry, Gone of the Thunder, we learn, boom. Thor sat in the Tower of Solitude, the library prison once used by Allfather Odin. Hunched over a stone bench in a stone room, the tower's sole prisoner on the orders of his brother, he fumed silently, waiting for the chance to act and fearing what fate might befall Asgard if he could not act soon. Boom! From outside came rhythmic impacts as something powerful hurled itself against the tower's walls. Thor could only wait. Loki had outwitted him, duping him into entering the tower and imprisoning him there. As one might expect of a clever usurper such as Loki, the room was enchanted to stifle any sound he might utter. Boom! Dust and mortar drifted from one wall of Thor's cell. He stood. It was almost time. Loki might have betrayed him and made his devious play for the throne of Asgard, but even Loki could not think of everything. It had not occurred to him, for example, that Thor could call Mjolnir without making a sound. Boom! Mjolnir exploded through the wall of the Tower of Solitude and met Thor's extended hand. He gave a shout, relieved to hear the sound of his voice again. Brother! With its walls shattered, the Tower of Solitude no longer held its enchantments. More quietly than his initial challenge, Thor added, "You have a surprise in store." He flew through the hole over the city of Asgard and towards the palace, with Yggdrasil's roots arching far overhead. Loki had crews at hard labor tapping the world's tree sap, which we've discussed is rich in Chronovium. Thor had no doubt that Loki would cut a deal with the dwarves or anyone else who could use the rich sap to create magical weapons or instruments if he hadn't already. But Chronovium had also transformed Loki's magic, making him even more powerful. But Thor felt it too. It glimmered in the carvings on Mjolnir's Uru head, and he even felt it in the Odin force. But now, Loki would feel it too. As Thor reached the throne room, he shouted out his brother's name, letting the challenge echo across the city. Loki! Your plan didn't work, brother. You see, I'm free. And Loki was there, manifesting in the air just out of Thor's reach. On the contrary, brother, my plan is working perfectly. Do you not think I anticipated you would solve this problem the only way you ever solve any problem? He smirked. That is to say, with brute force. The smirk was the opening Thor needed, the single moment of inattention that always got Loki in trouble. He seized Loki and dropped to the ground, smashing his brother into the stones of Asgard's palace plaza as he raised Mjolnir, but Loki stung Thor's hand with a short knife and twisted away. How long had they been inexorably moving towards this moment? Centuries. Tens of centuries. I have tried, Thor thought. I tried to make him feel like one of us. But Loki only ever looks out for Loki. And now, again, Asgard's future hangs in the balance. I knew you had escaped the tower before you were all the way through the hole, Loki sneered. It always makes me chuckle when you scream brother, like when we were children. And yet you have answered my call, Thor shot back. If you could have stopped me, why the charade? Oh, brother, Loki said, twisting the word. You know I love a charade. And by escaping, you have helped settle the little dispute I was having. You see, a certain someone who may be shortly joining our conversation did not believe you would escape. And now that you have, she will be doubtless to see the wisdom of my proposed course of action. As if he had summoned it, a portal opened, and through it, Thor saw the unmistakable landscape of Hell, bleak and dark and endless. Hela's legions of dead were on the march, with Chronovium glittering in their empty eyes. Hela herself leading them on. Space bent around her, and in the next instant, she stepped through the portal. Now, a lot of the lore of Asgard beyond this is told not only through Thor's reveal trailer, where we see the moments after he broke free and attempted to stop Loki. However, there's actually a lot to learn from the in-game missions we got during this Chronovium saga in Season 0, as well as the actual consequences of what we do in-game. First off, on the Yggsgard map in Marvel Rivals, there are multiple different objectives, depending on what team you're on, that reveal the different outcomes happening in different realities. In one game, you'll lead a team to stop Loki's Yggdrasil sapping device, allowing the Chronovium-filled sap to be restored within the tree itself, and cutting off Loki and Hela's supply of the resource, since it merging of Yggdrasil is the reason it's also appearing in Hell. On the other side, you may get tasked with defending the sapping device in order to wither Yggdrasil completely, sapping it of all of its juicy amber insides, which I'm sure is only gonna mean bad things, but hey, the objective is the objective, right? Other objectives on the Yggsgard map are things like freeing Jarnbjorn, which has been locked away, by delivering it to Thor via his two trusty Go companions, giving the Asgardian even more power to help in the fight. Or of course, the inverse universe where you keep Bjorn in captivity, banging against the walls in the spawn room forevermore. Beyond these, there are missions for dispelling the illusion on the mural in the Yggsgard throne room, as well as shattering the statue of Loki in Yggsgard's Bifrost Garden, which once again coincide with the Thor reveal trailer and also goes to help him fight Loki and Hela off from his home. But more than anything, it's just a really cool in-game nod to the lore they're building up and the story that's being told, which I really appreciate. Now, while we're on the topic of Thor, since it's going to be a little bit before we mention him again, I did want to bring up his team up with Storm and Captain America, despite the fact that both of those characters are also a ways off from appearing in the lore as well. However, in their Voltaic Union team up, it says that few have proven capable of lifting the legendary hammer Mjolnir due to an ancient Asgardian enchantment that allows only those deemed worthy to wield it. Though that honor has most often belonged to the god of thunder Thor, a small handful of mortals, including Captain America and Storm, have managed to raise this mighty mallet high and call forth his fury in times of dire need, with a reminder of the inscription on Mjolnir that reads, "Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the title of Thor." Finally, if you completed all the missions this season in your inventory, you should have a Thread of Fate collectible item, and its description more or less echoes a lot of what we've explained so far, but it goes into a little more detail on how Loki is trying to use his share of the Chronovium Yggdrasil sap to create new threads of fate, allowing him to rewrite the 10 realms to his will, so it's nice that we actually managed to snag one ourselves. Now, beyond their lore entries, we know that at some point in the story of Marvel Rivals, Hela gains enough power where she begins to call herself the Empress of the Cosmos, likely thanks to the fact that using Chronovium, she can gather energy from the souls at the end of the universe from all the realities mixing in with hers, giving her unfathomable power and enhancing all of her troops like we saw at the end of Thor's lore. Loki, on the other hand, at some point in the near future, also has a meeting with one of Null's emissaries, and unlike Hela, who threatened it, sending it away, it seems like Loki actually made a visit to Clintar and ended up bonding himself with a primordial symbiote, changing himself into Loki the All-Butcher, or his official title, Loki the Necrogod. Now, it's to be seen whether Loki bonded with part of Null directly or one of his other primordial symbiotes like Rex or Grendel, but I actually personally have my bet on it being part of Grendel the symbiote dragon, since his armor does sort of look draconic in nature. These are probably the strongest versions of these characters we've seen yet, maybe aside from Loki in season 2, so let's see how Thor is going to overcome them and save his father as well as his realm. And with that, we conclude the Asgard section of the lore, where we're starting to learn a little bit more about Chronovium and this massive battle between realities. But now it's time to take a completely different angle, because Null is increasingly becoming important in our story, so next let's finally start to explain just what Spider-Man is doing in 2099 as we enter the 2099 arc of the story, starting with the Web Warriors.